Hello everyone and welcome to, a recap of what I think the Brownlow will be in 2024. Now remember last year I didn't even have Lockie Neal in my top 4 and he obviously won it, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, and I'm just going to go through team by team and say who I think is going to score the most votes for each team. So first up is Adelaide. I think Jordan Dawson has had a pretty good year. Ben Keys has been the surprising one for me. I think he has kicked quite a few goals and he has had a decent impact on the overall game for the Crows. Unfortunately, their season was pretty poor overall. I think a lot of people, including myself, had them inside the top 8 this year, and they ended up 15th. So overall, a pretty terrible year for the Crows. Next up is Brisbane, and 2 weeks in a row they've come back from behind to get their slot into the grand final, so well done to them. I think I will be supporting Brisbane for the grand final. I really don't care about which team wins, but I think I prefer the way Brisbane play a little bit more than Sydney. Anyway, I think Lockie Neal will end up as the 3rd overall for the Brownlow vote. You'll be able to see in a little bit who I think has got 1st and 2nd, as everyone already knows. But I think Lockie Neal had a great year this year. He's been a pretty consistent performer, and a little bit later I'll show you where I think he will get his votes. I think he misses out just a little bit. I think there was a few sections in the season which he didn't perform as well. I think a few other players like Hugh McCluggage and Dunkley and Zorka, I guess, in the second half of the year probably stole a few votes off of him. And so I reckon he ends up with 25 votes. And so Carlton, I think Patrick Cripps will be the winner. I think he will get 29 votes as far as I've counted. I think he's been pretty lucky because Sam Walsh has been roughly around the same mark, but I just don't feel like he has the same impact on a game as much as Cripps does. And so I think Cripps will end up with 29 votes, and I think he will be the Brownlow winner. I think Nick Dacos will get 2nd, and obviously you can see I reckon he's going to get about 27 votes for Collingwood. Josh Dacos is the 2nd best with 8, so Nick Dacos obviously the clear favourite for Collingwood there, but I think he's just going to fall short by about 2 votes. I think he was a little bit quiet in the first half of the season, but the second half definitely comes flying home, so it wouldn't surprise me if he does steal the win away from Cripper. In what's been another disappointing year for the Essendon Bombers, I think Zach Merritt has been the outstanding light for them. I reckon he will end up with about 22 votes, and Jai Caldwell and Nick Martin I think will get about 9 votes. As you can see, there's quite a few players on here who have polled. I just think overall Zach Merritt is the best in that team. But still not enough to win the Brownlow medal, but maybe if they start winning a few more games, maybe he will win a Brownlow. Another good year for Freo, still couldn't quite make the finals. I feel like they are just right on the cusp of doing it next year. Caleb Sarong, I think, will get 21 votes, Brayshaw 17 and Hayden Young 16. I feel like they should do better than this next year, especially with those 3 strong players inside. And what a turnaround Hayden Young's been coming from the back line into the midfield. What a champion. For the Gold Coast Suns, I feel like it's a 2-horse race between Noel Anderson and Matt Rowell. 21 and 20 votes between the two of them. Sam Flanders also had a good year, but he didn't play a full year, as we know. So 2 players there that break into the 20, which usually means it's been a good year, at least for those 2 players. But hopefully they can do better next year and play some finals. Overall, I found this one a little bit strange because Geelong have played such a good year, obviously just missing out on the grand final this year. They have a lot of great players, but no one really polled that highly on the Brownlow vote, in my opinion. Jeremy Cameron, I believe, will end up with 12. Tom Stewart, in and out of the side, ended up with 9. Brian Myers and Dangerfield 7. I feel like Max Holmes is probably a little bit stiff here. He probably did play a little bit better than 6 votes throughout the year. But as you can see, there's quite a few players there who did steal votes from each other. And there was no real outstanding player besides Jeremy Cameron, in my opinion, from the Cats this year. I feel like GWS were also in the same boat. I feel like Jesse Hogan top scored for them with 14 votes. That's probably a bit stiff. Tom Green probably should be first there. Lucky Whitfield also had another pretty good year, mostly coming out of the kick-in role. And there's quite a few players there who scored some votes, but no real outstanding player in my opinion besides Jesse Hogan, which is obviously strange being a forward, the last 2 players being forwards and scoring the most votes. Again, just my opinion. I feel like a lot of people were on the Hawk train this year, and Jai Newcomb, what a year he's had. What a great pickup he's been for the Hawks. I think he was one of those mid-year drafts, came from nowhere, and now he's probably one of the best players at the Hawks. So well done to him. James Worpel, also 12 votes, and it's quite surprised to see Sicily on this list with 8 votes. He has had probably the best year I think he's had in quite some time, so fair enough for him for getting 8 votes. Will Day, very unfortunate year for him. Hopefully he'll come back next year fit and healthy, and he will no doubt be at the top of the list, I reckon, for the Hawks, of course. Another surprising one for me was Melbourne's downfall this year. They've obviously got some internal issues there. Petrarca going down with the injury, but then players like Clayton Oliver, who just hasn't performed this year at all. I think he only gets 3 votes overall. Christian Petrarca, obviously with that injury, I think he still gets 9 votes, but Max Gawn has been the best player for me for Melbourne. I think he will just crack the 20 votes, which is pretty good for a big man. He tried his absolute hardest this year, but just wasn't enough. Hopefully they'll all come back better, fitter and healthy, ready for 2025. Yet another disappointing year for North Melbourne. I feel like LDU and Sheasel, well, probably Jerry as well, probably the only 3 players in my opinion that get a passing mark. Jerry has been very good in the ruck, probably very underrated, probably a lot, just because of the team that he's on. Harry Sheasel's also had a great year. LDU has performed pretty well, but just the people around him just aren't good enough to get enough wins to make any sort of damage and be present in September. Overall, a pretty disappointing year for North Melbourne fans, I would imagine. For Port Adelaide, it's no surprise who will feature in the Brownlow votes for them. I have Zach Butters on 18, Ollie Wines on 16, Jason Horne-Francis 15 and Connor Rosie 11. That's where Port has won most of their games, is inside the midfield, and then obviously the forward line and defence are a little bit lacking, especially with all the injuries that they had come into finals time. Unfortunately for them, hopefully they will be better next year and be able to go one step further. And for Richmond fans, it's been a very disappointing year. I feel like Toby Nankervis, Shea Bolton and Nick Voston are probably the top scorers. As you can see, no one has broken the 10 mark. I feel like it's been an extremely disappointing year for Richmond fans, and now Dusty Martin is also gone, so you're probably looking at 3 to 5 years of a lot of pain for Richmond fans, unfortunately. But yeah, that's my year in review for them. For Saints fans, it's been up and down. They looked like they were going to make finals all the way from the start of the season. They played really well and then just completely fell off for the rest of the year. Jack Steele and Rowan Marshall are the only players that I think will break the 10 mark. They've both had pretty good years, not fantastic, but probably good enough to keep them going. But yeah, overall, Saints fans looking like they were going to do some great things this year, and unfortunately, just in the end, just doing plain old Saints things, I guess. As we all know, at the start of the season, Isaac Heaney was off to an absolute flyer. I think he ends up with 26 votes, which I think would put him in third, but obviously he's ineligible because of the suspension. I feel like Errol Goulden will get 20, Warner 19 and Blakey 12, so they actually end up with 4 players in 10 or more votes, which I think is a pretty good year. Brodie Grundy's been pretty disappointing, but I still think he will get 7 votes. I don't think it'll be that disappointing for Heaney. It always sucks to win the Brownlow and then be ineligible, but I still don't think he will win it this year. The Western Bulldogs team was up and down all year. It looked like they were going to make finals, then they weren't, and then they just scraped through. I feel like Marcus Bontempelli had a good year, but I feel like Treloar and a few others, Ed Richards, would steal some votes off of him. I think he ends up with 25, which puts him equal third. I don't think he's done enough this year to win the Brownlow, but again, that's my opinion. I feel like 25 is getting right there to the point where you could win it. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be another runner-up or third for Marcus Bontempelli this year. We don't need to talk too much about West Coast. Elliot Yeo, Harley Reid and Jake Waterman were probably the only 3 players I feel like did enough. Again, players didn't crack the 10. Harley Reid, he's got a lot of work to do, but he does look like a genuine superstar, so he'll be very exciting to watch over the next 5 years. So here is my overall top 20 player list here. As you can see, I got Paddy Cripps on 29, Dacos on 27, Heaney on 26, who's ineligible, and the Bont and Lockie Neal on 25. So I feel like it is between those 4 players. The bookies do seem to agree. I feel like Cripps will win by about 2 votes. Some people have him going over 30, which is a very high Brownlow vote. He has had a great year. Will he crack over 30? I'm not entirely sure. And then this is where I believe the players will poll all the way from opening round to round 24 and what votes I gave them throughout the year. As you can see, Paddy Cripps is pretty consistent throughout the year. Nick Dacos has a very slow beginning. It's not until about round 6 by the time then he starts to ramp up, and especially the last few games. Same with Lockie Neal. He's been fairly consistent throughout the year, getting quite a few 3 votes. And then Marcus Bontempelli, those last 4 rounds, he should get a vote in every round there. But I just don't think that's quite enough. I think Paddy Cripps will get the chocolates. And yeah, anyway, that's my Brownlow predictions for 2024. What do you think? Leave a comment below. Let me know. It's on tomorrow night. Let's watch it. Let's go Paddy Cripps.